Okay, welcome back to the Adventure Within channel. My name is Andrew Fritz. I'm a clairvoyant, healer, and meditation teacher. And today's topic is going to be on the soul evolutionary process. I've already done a YouTube video on this, but it was more kind of like a brief overview. I'm going to go slightly into a little more detail. And the way I describe it is using the diagram of a traditional round clock, the kind you would hang on a wall. So, 12 o'clock, and then 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, back to 12 o'clock. Um, so as I kind of work around the clock, so to speak, starting at 12:01, I'm not really talking about one individual lifetime. As I kind of work around the clock, I'm going to go hour to hour, kind of what it might represent, some of the energy of, if a soul kind of reaches this part of their soul evolution, this is kind of the general energy for that particular hour in this kind of metaphorical diagram. But as I kind of work around the clock, I'm not necessarily talking about one individual lifetime. This is the evolution over many, many lifetimes, from essentially atheism all the way to kind of full and complete enlightenment. Okay, so we'll start at the very beginning of the clock. So we'll say 12:01. And that is that atheist energy. It's the crown chakra at the top of the head is pretty much closed off. There's really no belief in God or spirit. They believe they're the body, and obviously the body will perish at some point. So it's just okay. Once the body is gone, and that's it. That's all she wrote. That's a wrap. And that's kind of that starting at that 12:01. And as the soul progresses to about 1 o'clock, there might be kind of a sense of maybe there's something, kind of a questioning, maybe a pondering. Maybe there's something greater out there, so to speak. But more than likely they'll probably dismiss it or turn their back to that. And that's that 1 o'clock. So still kind of that atheist energy there. As a soul progresses and moves to about 2 o'clock, this is again similar energy. There's going to be this kind of questioning, pondering, kind of this curiosity of, is there something greater out there than what meets the physical eye? Just this physical, reality and nature. And there's more of a willingness at this point. At 2 o'clock, there's more of a willingness to kind of to lean into that lean into that curiosity, or kind of move forward with that. And then a soul will reach that 3 o'clock, and there's this, again, kind of the crown chakra is opened up just a little bit more, and there's a sense that, there's something greater out there, but I can't pinpoint it. I don't know what that might be, but there's this sense that there's something more. And like I said, the crown chakra by this point is a little more opened at that 3 o'clock. And that's essentially that first quadrant. And again, you kind of, in that first quadrant from 12 to 3, you're kind of starting off atheist, and then kind of as you kind of get more to the 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and we're starting to get a little more agnostic. So that's that first quadrant, and we'll start to move into the second quadrant. And then we're getting to 4 o'clock. So this is where souls, that's more philosophical. So souls might be interested in philosophy. They kind of rely more on the analytical and kind of rational mind to form or come to conclusions about things. But yeah, people will be very interested in philosophy at that particular part of their soul evolution at 4 o'clock. So from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the second quadrant, at this point, you could say souls they're exploring world religions of different kinds. And again, this is happening over a series or multiple lifetimes, exploring different religions. By this point, they could really reach the peak or excel in things like being a performing artist, or becoming the head of a company, a CEO, or a leading scientist. There's that kind of reaching that outwardly kind of worldly success, if you will, in these different avenues. And those are just some examples. But by this point, they definitely have been exploring, maybe some different religions at that point. The interesting thing is that as a soul kind of moves from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock, kind of the end of the first half, And, the first half is essentially really about the ego and the world. But when a soul hits 6 o'clock, this is a really challenging part for a soul because they're going to run into a big wall. Um, and this wall, they can get really kind of stuck, if you will. So they'll, you run into a wall and you can't get through, so to speak. And that's kind of frustrating. That's going to cause a lot of anger and maybe a little questioning right there and some reflection. But at this point, I see that a soul might start to kind of dig into their crown chakra and start to um, kind of clear out some of that religious energy and that programming that they have learned about from the prior lifetimes, the recent prior lifetimes in that second quadrant, and might start dismissing those religious pictures and energies. And there's anger, and this can really, a soul can get really to a low point here. Souls might, just because they're very stuck, right? They're angry, now they're kind of hitting a low point, almost depressed, basically. And seems like nothing's really working. And, they may resort to drugs and alcohol to cope. Some souls, it gets so bad where they just off themselves, they just commit suicide. That's a thing. And then some, they just kind of hit that total rock bottom. And again, kind of dismiss some of the, past religious, pictures and energy. And, but they don't know what else to do. Okay, nothing seems to be working. I can't progress forward. And so they kind of just open up to God or Great Spirit, the divine. And it's just, hey, I don't know what to do, but I'm going to need some help, basically. And usually that's where they start to shift and get unstuck. Something actually happens where they can kind of, almost like as if it's the hand of God coming through this wall they're running into and kind of pulling them into the next phase or the next quadrant of this soul evolutionary process. Like I said, 12 to 6 is more about the ego and the world as they kind of move into the third quadrant from 6 to 9. Now, and really the whole from 6 to back to 12 is really about spirit and turning within, having your inner experiences. So when a soul kind of makes it into that third quadrant, so then we're kind of moving from 6 o'clock now to 7 o'clock. So at 7 o'clock, now there's more of an opening. There's an opening more in the center of the chest. That heart chakra starts to open up more. And also the crown chakra opens up more. And they're getting interested in spirituality. They might start taking classes on meditation. They might be getting interested in lucid dreaming and having lucid dreams and exploring that. So that's that 7 o'clock. And progressing from 7 then to 8. 8 o'clock, a soul might start to, they'll hit an energy, but they'll be able to clear it. And it's at a crown chakra level. It's almost like having a lid on top of the crown, but they kind of pop or blow through this limitation energy at a crown chakra spiritual level, where they kind of have like a breakthrough with kind of their connection and relationship with their higher self. And they start to realize, oh gosh, yes, all my answers and all the things that I kind of really want or need are within myself as a being. And that's a deep realization and kind of a critical point for a soul to kind of get to. That just, wow, it's the things I've been looking for, they really are within myself, and they have that realization and that understanding. So going from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, this is kind of getting to the end of the third quadrant and kind of the beginning almost of the final fourth quadrant. At 9 o'clock, at this point, they've cleared the limitation off their crown chakra's been opening up more, and they've cleared this limitation. So they have at 9 o'clock, they have a strong connection and relationship with their higher self, the part that's not limited to this lifetime. The part that has, their answers of truth and information. They have a good relationship with that part of themselves, so much so that they might go ahead and start teaching, or in some way they might, however it looks for them, that they'll start helping people that are just starting to enter that third quadrant, the 6 to 9 quadrant, people that are, they hit that wall at around 6 o'clock and they finally made it into just past 6 o'clock. People that are just getting into that and perhaps starting to get into spirituality and meditation and starting to turn their awareness within. and not focus on the world, the outside, the external, so to speak, external consciousness, and they're interested in going within. And so the people at 9 o'clock might start to help them in some way, or maybe it's spiritual teaching or some avenue that's maybe related to spirituality, but it can look differently for certain souls, how they teach, or just guide or help the people that are coming into that quadrant. That's something that's common. So that's 9 o'clock. So getting past 9, then we hit 10 o'clock. Souls at a 10 o'clock level in this clock metaphor, 10 o'clock, a soul's going to have a high degree of neutrality and amusement. So basically, neutrality, it's not about what's right or wrong. It's not about what's good or bad. And it's really just being able to accept something and let it be just as it is. You're not in effort, you're not in judgment or resistance about whatever it is. You're just kind of observing it and just giving it space to be whatever it exactly is in that moment. And at this level, at 10 o'clock, they're especially can be neutral to really challenging things, challenging energies that we might experience on this planet, witness on this planet, some of the darker tragedies. They're at this level. It may not make sense to people that are early on, or earlier, some earlier part of this soul evolutionary process. But at the 10 o'clock, they can have a great deal of neutrality and amusement with some really heavy stuff that occurs here. Just because they've had all that inner work in that third quadrant from 6 to 9 and progressing from 9 to 10, developing that neutrality. And the more neutral you are, the free you are, which is the beauty of that. So in Buddhism, it would be kind of like the middle way, the middle path. Christianity, kind of with Jesus, kind of the straight and narrow. That's kind of referring to neutrality. So that's 10 o'clock. So a soul progresses from 10 to 11. At 11 o'clock, a soul, they'll be able to see in nature, they'll be able to see in other people and other human beings, even within them own selves, they'll be able to recognize Great Spirit or Source, or all that is, whatever you want to call it. They can recognize that sense of divine grace in nature, whether it's in a tree or it's other people, within their own selves. They can recognize that sense of divinity. And that's the 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock, that's two critical highlights for that final quadrant. Being able to have that higher degree of neutrality, that sense of amusement, and the ability to see Source in everything, basically. Anything, everything, anyone, including yourself. And then finally you get to the 12 o'clock, and you hit 12 o'clock, that the wisdom body, the divine body, it's your innermost, finest, kind of subtle body, that will be totally complete by 12 o'clock. And that's the subtle body that's totally comprised of, when I look at it clairvoyantly, many pixels or fragments or specks of wisdom. And if you kind of zoom in clairvoyantly, looking at the fine details of the wisdom body, you can start to see that every little speck of it represents a moment where a soul in various past lives has had an experience and turned that experience into wisdom. And the more experiences where they've learned and grown from it and accumulated or gained wisdom from that fills in and kind of completes this immortal body. So this happens lifetime after lifetime of trial and error and growing and learning and whatnot until they hit the 12 o'clock, where this immortal body is completely radiant and totally complete. And when it's totally complete, they have a great sense of knowing truly who they are as spirit, knowing where they came from, their divine heritage, and knowing Source. They know all that, and then they're done. They're free. And at that point, then, you don't have to return here. You could if you want. And And then there's that whole thing of, well, okay, if a soul reaches that, and okay, there's the freedom to come back if you want or not come back. Then what are all the possibilities? Well, it's probably limitless on what one could do when they reach that point and go beyond that. And maybe that's kind of worth exploring in meditation, and maybe that'd be fun to kind of talk about maybe some of the possibilities in a future video. But hope you find this interesting or entertaining at least. This is on the soul evolutionary process. My name is Andrew Fritz. This is Adventure Within, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.